Hey, look, have you ever found yourself saying she doesn't like to talk about her thoughts, or he doesn't like to talk about his feelings, or we just kind of avoid having a conversation because they always lead to fights? Well, if that's you, you're going to enjoy this conversation today on Couples Pursuit Live.
Couples Pursuit.
Hello, this is Vincent
Valerie
Woodard. And on this episode of Couples Pursuit Live,
we're going to broach the question, can I talk to you? 5 ways to improve communication with your spouse.
Amen, amen. And look, if you know someone that might be interested in this topic, please share this with them right now. I think that it'd be beneficial to you and also them to be able to talk about this later. And also it helps us spread the word here at Couples Pursuit, because our goal here is to give you the tools to maintain and pursue a successful marriage. Amen.
Yes,
amen.
yes.
So we no longer feel like you can talk with your partner, with your spouse, with your loved one, with your boo thing. That is quite a predicament to find yourself in.
Yes, that's a problem because number one, intimacy begins with communication. And if you're not able to communicate with one another, then you're not able to effectively transfer your thoughts, your feelings, and you don't discuss the things that are not working.
That's right. That's right. And you might find yourself distant in the relationship with your spouse. You try to open up to them, and sometimes it seems like they're shutting down. And we talked about in another video, I can link to that, where we talked about intimacy abandonment. And so it's another level. It's so many levels, but not just the physical, but also emotional abandonment. I mean, it can lead to that when you are trying to communicate, you're trying to connect again with the person that you said I do with, that you want to grow old with. And now we find ourselves in a situation where, wow, we can't talk. And when we do talk, you feel like you can't talk, but when you do talk, it just seems to go left. And I don't want to go left. I'm tired of going down that road.
Yes, and for many people, depending upon what their communication style is, or what their love language is, or what type of communicator they are, whether they're verbal, nonverbal, whether they're a good listener or not, things really can kind of go astray. And this is yet another reason why we are advocates for courtship and for intentional courtship. So you spend your time getting to know one another while you're in your dating stage. So it's dating for marriage. Courtship is that, dating for marriage.
That's right.
And then you don't wait until you get into the relationship to find out, oh gosh, well, I didn't really know that about him or her.
Yeah.
You spend less time focusing on the physical and more time focusing on, getting to know one another.
That's true. And look, we also find ourselves like letting stuff go that we know should be addressed early on, but we kind of like, okay, well, or they when they shut down, when they get mad, they shut down for like days at a time, or when they get mad, they cuss and they fuss and they raise their voice, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe that's just them, that's just the way they process. I let it go. It's like you probably should talk about those issues.
Yeah, address the hard things before you marry someone. You should know what they're like in every state. And when I say every state, I don't mean come up with situations to test and try them. But, if you don't experience it, what happens when you're angry?
Yes.
What do you do when you're sad? How do you respond to stress?
Yeah.
You need to know these things. And how do you like to be approached when there's a sensitive subject that needs to be talked about? These are questions we don't really ask each other. We just kind of float through, and I say we in general. Maybe some people do. We didn't. We didn't. Maybe some people, will talk about those things, but in general, we should know how the person that you want to spend the rest of your life with moves in certain situations. I've said this many times before, and I'll say it again. A true test of love, of true love. Well, I should just say love, because love is either love or it's either love or it's not, right? But a true test of that is what happens when you're angry. Can you still be respectful? Can you still be mindful, of your words and your way? Or are you the person who makes excuses for acting unseemly when you're angry? Do you feel like it is warranted? Did you grow up that way? Do you make excuses for it?
And now that you're in your marriage, and sometimes complacency can creep in slowly, and you find and I said this one time before, it's like all of a sudden you find yourself in this situation, but it's probably been developing over years, and some things that, before we get into the 5 ways to improve these things, let's try to break it down a little bit. Like, how did we get here? Right. Maybe, and there are common themes that I've read and known that can get us here. One is in unforgiveness, unchecked unforgiveness. Those things that unaddressed unforgiveness. You're mad about your spouse. You were upset. Something happened in a situation, and we kind of just got over it. Nobody glossed really, over it. Yeah.
You glossed over it.
Nobody never really apologized. Nobody never really said, you know what, I take ownership for my part, what I did. And we didn't really want to fight and argue anymore, or that the couple didn't want to fight and argue anymore. So we just kind of like, okay, well, what's for dinner? And and we never really addressed the fact that, I was really hurt by what happened. Yeah. And I'm still hurt.
Yes, because what happens to that hurt, it gets pushed down, and then the next time a situation comes up, not only do you want to address what is happening, you want to address, even if you don't address it, you have the push behind the anger is what's underneath that is what has happened before. And if we don't address that, then it becomes a serious issue.
Yeah. And also, to piggyback on that, is like insensitive treatment. And it's like, this is just the way we are. It's the callous that develops because I'm always treating you rough. Somebody's always treating the other spouse rough, and you just do it so much that you kind of just like get a thick skin towards it. You're like, well, yeah, that's just how they are. Maybe, but people can change.
Yes, people can change, and I want to say something about that thick skin. Is tender underneath that thick skin. Sometimes people won't say, we talked about communication style. Some people are passive aggressive. Some people are aggressive and some people are assertive. Now, to be passive, you just kind of, you let things go by. You don't really say too much. Passive aggressive, you don't say too much, but your body language or your actions say, I was a little bit bothered by that. Or you do something contrary to what you're saying. I'm fine, but you're not acting like you're fine. And then if you're aggressive, then you're the person that's like rah rah and right on top of it. But then if you're assertive, you say, listen, I ain't really like that. We need to talk about it. So depending upon how that person is, the callous may come because they're passive or passive aggressive and they don't approach you about it, but they're hurting.
Yes.
And they don't tell you. Yeah.
And that leads to another point. We're talking about what could cause the miscommunication or disconnect in a marriage when you and your spouse find yourself not really having conversation, not really talking to one another anymore, maybe even ever.
At all, yeah.
Another one is lack of effort or lack of time together, planned time, thought about time that you actually look forward to. Like we actually look forward to, not saying we,
tomorrow,
but
tomorrow's
people
date night.
Can actually look forward to like getting away from the spouse.
Oh yeah.
Instead of the effort to reconnect back with them and find the things that they both can enjoy together. I think that's the fun in that is defining the things that we can both enjoy. Because like I'm a sports person, my wife is not really.
She's not.
Yes.
Unless it's pickleball.
Yeah. But we find things that we do enjoy together. So it's an effort. You know, we're like, okay, well, no. Hey, what about this? You know. So one of the things that can develop is lack of effort. Like you're not doing that anymore. If you ever did do it.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And are you the person, again, that personality style, are you going to ask for what you want? Or are you just going to, well, that's the way he or she always does. And, you know, whenever I bring up something, they don't really respond. So I just don't say anything. And when I say, when we say, can I talk to you? It goes both ways. Can you approach your spouse about how you're feeling, what you're feeling? Do you have the maturity to do it without anger and without vengeance and without backbiting? And can that spouse come to you? When they come to you,
how are you? Yeah.
Are you accessible? Do you say no? You can't talk to me, not with your mouth, but with your ways, with your attitude, with your disposition, with your body language.
Wow.
Do you walk away? Do you make excuses? Do you put them off? But we'll talk about it later, et cetera, et cetera. Do you do those things? So when you think about, can I talk to you? Also think about, can your spouse talk to you?
Yeah. Like, do you intentionally, like, you know, well, if I keep this demeanor, you know, she's not going to approach me because she knows, and that leads to another point that is something that you can do to ward off having a conversation or connecting with your spouse is your fear of talking through issues. Like, I don't really want to talk about that issue. I don't really want to talk about what I did wrong or what you're not happy about, or the bills, or the children, or whatever.
Or what's bothering me? What's hurting me? Why am I disconnected?
So the fear of talking through it, I don't want to talk. And I know if I keep myself busy enough, if I keep myself inaccessible enough, that we don't have to talk about
avoidance.
Those issues.
I can avoid you. I can avoid the conversation. But the what happens with that is you also put distance between you emotionally, right? If you put physical distance, then sometimes you also put emotional distance. And then when it comes time to deal with issues that you have to, let's say your daily things, the logistics, you know, who's going to pick up the kids, the bills have to be paid, you know, it's time to go to church, or I'll see you when I get home from work. And you do all of that normal, quote unquote, transaction of information. And then when it comes time for that spouse to want to talk to you, have a conversation, and you draw back, then that creates a wedge. And then when it's time for intimacy, are you expecting that spouse to be intimate with you when you won't engage with them? You know, when you can't even have a conversation with them? And are you the one who will withhold? You know, you'll withdraw from intimacy because you know, if I come close to you, then I'm going to have to reveal myself to you. I'm going to have to open myself up to you. And I don't know how to do that well, or I don't want to do that because it's going to reveal some things about me, whether that's fear, shame, guilt, anger, frustration, ignorance in the true sense of the word of not knowing, you know, you don't have the knowledge of how to handle the situation. But when two people come together, they are supposed to become one. And so when they become one, what hurts him should be of concern to me. And what hurts me should be of concern to him. What excites me, you know, what frightens me, he should be able to know me.
That's right.
To know means to be intimate. And we do ourselves a disservice in marriage. Even in courtship, if we are unable to communicate in, you know, intellectually, not just physically. So if you find yourself in this situation right here, I want to encourage you to do not give up hope. Yes.
We can communicate better. We do have the skills. We have the ability. We need the effort from both parties who want to get better. There is hope. We're going to offer you 5 tips or strategies, 5 ways to help give you some kind of guideline to start building on. These are not all-inclusive.
Right.
What they are just starting points. And then for you to just take it with you and say, let me try this and let's see if it works. I want to connect. I want to be reunited because it feels so good. So corny. But I love that song.
Me too.
But I think this right here can be a blessing to you or someone else that you might know.
Right.
And the first one is acknowledge each other. Yes, you have a fear. Yes, I have an issue that I do want to talk about. I know it's uncomfortable, but I know that I just want to connect with you. I love you. I want to spend time with you. I don't want you to leave. I want you to be right here. I want to have a family. You know, some examples can be when you walk in the room, just say, hey, babe.
Yes.
You know, when you leave the room, I'm gone. See you, babe.
Yeah.
It's. I know couples have their way of doing things, but if you are going through an issue, and even if you're not, I just believe speaking when you walk into a room for the first time is such a great way to keep the connection. It's just it's so underrated, I believe. Sometimes I see couples that just walk in the room and they don't walk in the house, they don't say anything. I'm like, what? Where are we living at?
Yeah. When you walk in the room, and sometimes we see it on you can see couples, like if I mentioned pickleball earlier, sometimes Vince would meet me at the court when he would get off work, and I will stop what I'm doing and I embrace him and I kiss him. This is the first time I've seen him since the morning, 5:30 in the morning. And so I do that. We embrace one another. It's not a big old sloppy kiss, but it's a hey babe and a peck, missed you today, some eye contact.
Yes.
And then we will notice other couples as we are out doing things, or even sometimes like watching a movie or something like that, and the husband or wife comes in the house, they don't even look each other in the face. They just put their things down, or they start getting, undressed, go take a shower, and there's no acknowledgement of the other person's presence. It's just like, hey, or not at all. It just becomes a conversation. Well, I'm about to take a shower and head to the gym. It's like, what's going on with that?
Yeah, and you could say, well, if Vincent works for us, I urge you to really evaluate that.
Does
really.
it?
Yeah, because we're talking about, to connect.
Yeah.
It's communication is so key. And we have an effective communication masterclass that I can leave a link in the description. Because communication is so key, but communication is for the connection. And if you really think about how connected are we, and this is just one step, I believe, just acknowledge each other, leaving the room, enter into the room. If you see a despondency, you see their countenance is kind of low. So I see something on you. What's going on?
Yeah, what's going on? How are you feeling? And checking in with one another is really good. Sometimes I will say to my husband, we're both, our love language for both of us is physical touch. And I forget what the other, and words of affirmation. Words of affirmation was my first, I believe, and then physical touch is physical touch.
It was switched for me.
Yeah. And so it's important for us to check in with each other and be like, well, how you feeling? Today, did you have a good day? If you're talking to me, sometimes I'll find myself, if I'm on my phone, okay, you need to put your phone down, because he's not just going to say, oh, today was a good day. He's going to say, well, look, this is what happened. And I need to put my phone down and say, okay, I need to give him that attention. If someone is if you walk up to a counter in a store, now I've heard many people get peeved about, I walked up to the counter. She didn't even look at me in my face. She did $25.83. Took my card and swiped it and threw the receipt at me and went on. Well, why are you offended?
Ooh, baby.
At the person who doesn't even know you because they didn't communicate with you.
Ooh.
But
that deserves some hearts right there. That right there.
But you can walk in the door or get in a car or ride in a car for, minutes to hours at a time with your spouse and you don't connect with them. So even if it quote unquote works for you, why is it working for you?
Yeah.
What is the benefit of the disconnect? And even if it's good, more communication, deeper communication can make it better.
It's so wild. It's two. To keep it going is to share first. You're like, well, he won't talk to me. Well, are you talking to them? I say he, because sometimes the man is the culprit sometimes, but the
Not
woman
always.
sometimes, yeah. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're like, well, they don't want to talk to me, well, all right, let's try talking to them, see what happens, So share first. Share what about your day? What was funny? What was sad? What was abnormal? You saw a turtle in the middle of the road. We don't see turtles all the time.
Sometimes we do.
But you understand something? You see where I'm going?
Yeah.
It's sharing first, and you're like, well, they just be like, oh, for real? Yeah. It was a big one. I almost hit it with the car. It's sharing about your day. And sometimes that just opens up to be like, wow, yeah, I used to have turtles all the time. I gotta go talking to my man for a second. I had turtles all the time when I was growing up, and it just leads to conversation.
How did you talk to one another when you dated, when you connected? If you didn't, now is a great time to reevaluate that. See how you think about how you really feel about that. And then question how do you feel about our level of communication? Now, man, I know this might be like opening a can of worms. But what I will always say is when a woman feels heard, when she feels loved, when she feels honored, when you honor her with your words, when you honor her with your mouth, you honor her by doing the things that you say you're going to do, she feels comfort. I feel comfort in that. And so when you cause me to feel comfortable,
North Carolina out of you.
That was a little Fat Albert there. But when I feel comfortable, we can talk about anything, and it's not always going to lead to a never-ending conversation. Sometimes what it leads to is what you don't see.
That's right.
It's the opening of her heart to you. It's like, oh, well, he cares about what I think or feel or how my day was, or whether or not this or that bothered me. He noticed my body language when such and such happened, and we had a conversation about that. So then I have an opportunity to tell him, and then he has an opportunity to tell you, which leads me to the next thing. When you said, this is number 2, first was acknowledge each other, and number 2 was share first. You can share first, but you can also share first something you appreciate about your spouse.
Wow. Yes.
Open the lines of communications and say, babe, I really appreciate it when you do XYZ. It really makes me feel fill in the blank, comfortable, safe, supported, important. And I just wonder, what can I do for you?
I like that.
To make you feel.
I like that.
What do you need from me?
You appreciate about your spouse. And you kind of, touched on the third one, which would be open your heart. Be open to opening up your heart. Now I know it can be sensitive. Y'all just don't know my spouse. They get to talking, it's sensitive. They say some things that kind of make me want to shut down. I'm trying to get them to open up, and now I find myself clamming up. I understand. I'm not saying just leave your heart wide open so they can just, take it and throw it up in the air. I'm just saying be open, opening up your heart. Don't just say, okay, I tried, and 20 years later, I tried 20 years ago, and
that one time I told him how I felt, and he said, or she said, she called me a punk, or he said, you're always crying, or whatever.
Stop all that whining.
And then that shuts you down. Well, one time shouldn't be the only time that you try.
No. Be open to opening up, to your spouse, to, and that can be difficult to break down how you really feel about a certain issue, certain situation. But it's so effective to breaking down barriers. When you show, you ever see a standoff on a TV show? And both people have guns pointing at one another, or maybe a group of people have guns pointing at another group of people, and then somebody's like, okay, this is going to end badly.
Yeah. All right, let's think about what's really going to happen.
So one person just has the boldness, it's like they just hold the gun up, and just put it down.
Yeah.
And it just kind of, okay, I'm disarming myself.
Right.
And then the other side is like, oh, okay. Alrighty, people.
Yeah.
Be open to trying that.
Yes.
Stay on guard, stay on watch. Because sometimes I don't want you just to say, wow, every time I open my heart, they just stab it. Well, just take it away when they bring the knife out. But I'm saying, be open to it. That's number 3.
Yeah, be open to it. And then, if there is a negative response, there's a time to talk about that. So, I really wanted to share with you how I felt. And to be honest, I was a little afraid to do it.
Yeah.
And the reason why I was afraid is because of the response that I just received. When you respond to me that way, it makes me apprehensive about sharing, or it makes me angry, or it frustrates me, or it frightens me, or whatever the behavior is, and I really would like us to be able to communicate better. When I come to you, you're my partner, my best friend, my lover, my confidant. We've been married 6 days or 6 years or 60 years, whatever it is, right? And no one should be closer to me than you.
No one.
And so what can we do to kind of tear down some of this,
And there you go. There you go. That's the exact time. It can work 6 days, 6 years, 60 years. Whatever state that you find yourself in your marital journey, these principles can work. They are great starting points.
So what if that person says, if I did what I did, and that person says, well, I don't want to talk to you. Or, I just wasn't interested. Well, you're too sensitive. That might back you off. Like, wow, what do you mean I'm too sensitive? How should I respond?
Well, that's true.
To you?
And like I said, you do have to, protect yourself. But, it's a great, what we teach from biblical principles, it's a great verse that we talked about last night's Bible study, how a woman can actually win a man over, her husband. Over, just by the way she acts, her behavior. Man, I remember I can get the verse, I leave it in the comments. But I think it was 1 Peter. It's 1 Peter something. I leave it in the comments.
Yeah, it is.
But just her behavior is God has placed something in the inside of a woman supernaturally and aid her in matters just like this. And so I'm not saying it won't be uncomfortable. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that it's possible. That's what I'm saying. So that didn't work maybe that time. But don't close off forever. Don't just take your heart, put it up in the closet, and just my feelings, you won't see them no more. You won't see my emotions. You won't see my sensitivity. You won't see my vulnerability no more. Don't be that person. And the same thing with a male. We do have sometimes we're scared to open up because we're scared what they might say about showing the vulnerability. We're supposed to be strong. Who said that? Supposed to be macho. No. Who told you that? Who gave us? You're supposed to love. Man, you're supposed to love. One way to do that is to actually show interest in your wife. Do not try to shut her down. Don't give up on her. Don't just throw her away.
Right.
What was that 1 Peter 3?
1 Peter 3:1. Yeah, I was putting it in wrong. But also, if you get that gruff response, if you back up the first time, we said better or worse, richer or poorer, sickness and health, to death do its part, right? So this is a part of the worst. If you're going to be together, you're going to have to, well, you don't have to, because you can survive. You can just, survive a marriage, or you can thrive in a marriage. But if you want to thrive in your marriage, push through that. Well, sometimes if it becomes angry and aggressive, there is a time when you need to say, well, let me back up. But sometimes you can push through and say, well, tell me more about that. I need to understand this. It's not acceptable to me for you to raise your voice.
That's right.
So if I want to talk to you about something, am I able to do that? Or am I not? You're the person that I want to talk to, and you're the person that I should talk to about you. Exactly.
And speaking and talking, now, not just an aggressive, I'm not talking about like an aggressive spouse, somebody that's going to might be threatening you emotionally. I'm saying threatening you emotionally or physically. What I'm talking about is that, I think we're talking about the
just defensive aggression, like raising your voice and I don't want to talk about it, leave me alone, or you're always,
or just don't want to push engage back in the conversation,
right? Leave me.
There's another one that leads us to 4, and it's to ask meaningful questions. Now, I actually, and I read this. It's a book called The 5 Levels of Why, and we don't have time to go into that. But it was like, okay, well, you can walk in the room and you may say, hey, babe, you seem bothered. And that person will be like, yeah, I just had a long day at work.
Oh, I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm fine. You're like, well, a long day, was it a rough day? That's what you might say. And that person might be like, yeah, it was kind of stressful. Oh, okay. Kind of stressful. Did something
what happened?
Yeah. Well, I mean, my boss, he did this and he did that and this happened, and wow, I just got irritated. Wow, irritated. Are you sleeping? Are you sleeping good at nighttime? I mean, you got irritated kind of quickly. That's normally not like you. I didn't sleep that good last night. I'm just, man. She needs go to the doctor. I got this car. My truck is acting up. And it said 5 levels of why, but that was just 4. But even if you get to the point where they start opening, that's the point you want to get them to start opening up. And once they start opening up, then you can come to let's deal with this, 5 solutions together. It's like, well, how can we get your mom to the hospital? What can we do to get your truck fixed? What can we do to get you to sleep at nighttime? I need to not look at TV while you're trying to go to. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
It's like,
do you want to eat dinner earlier, or
we get into the how can I help?
What can I do?
Yeah, what can I do? Because it's always something deeper sometimes when you just say, I'm fine. Okay.
The saying, people don't care what you know until they know that you care.
Wow.
That's not necessarily used in circles where I've heard it. It's usually heard in like business circles, or if you're in marketing, if you're trying to sell somebody something. But what better place to use that than in a relationship? I want to know because I care, right? And I want you to know that I care.
That's true.
So it's not like I'm not asking you to. Why are you asking me so many questions? Because I care about you, and I'm I know that there are going to be bad days and rough times or whatever, and I'm here for you. So if you want to talk about that, and sometimes when that person is able to open their mouth and voice that, or even roll around the thoughts of the responses to the questions you're asking them, it allows them to decompress, and sometimes it will help them figure out, what, maybe I was a little cranky today.
That leads us to 5. It's great how we flow in the conversation. The 5
I didn't read your notes.
Evaluate yourself. What am I doing to make myself, and I'm talking about the person that wants to communicate to the person that doesn't like to talk. Like, what am I doing? Why would they feel like they don't want to talk to me? Am I too snappy about issues? Am I always trying to mansplain? Sometimes women can women-splain. That's am I always trying to?
Right?
Am I always getting upset and agitated, and they don't feel that they can share with me? They don't feel that they can unload on me. Like, if it's really a problem for them, like they don't want to share that with me because they think it might be too heavy for me. Like, evaluate yourself and see, like, what are they seeing from their perspective?
Yeah. How do I respond? Which goes back to not only when the question is raised, can I talk to you? That's not only asking, can you speak to your spouse, but can your spouse speak to you? And why not? If they were to come to you, put yourself in their shoes. When the next time your spouse comes to you to talk about something, or you see that something is bothering them, either make the attempt to inquire using these steps, or ask yourself, how would I respond? How can I respond in a way that would be comfortable for me? If I were to go to someone, would I want them to respond to me the way that I respond to my spouse?
That's right.
Put yourself in their shoes.
And I know we just gave you 5. Hopefully you take them and you're writing them down, and you can go back and rewatch this live on the replay. Isn't that great? Thank you, Facebook. Thank you, YouTube. And thank you, Reading Radio.
Yes.
But and the podcast. But if you find yourself these 5 and you're like, man, it's still something else missing, well, I urge you to always pray about the next. Always seek God about what it is about this certain situation. Because if it's your desire, God wants the best for us. And if it's we're living for Him, we're living for God, we're trying to get closer to Him, well, He's not going to back away. No, he wants to have a relationship with you. So pray about your next steps. Like, I tried. Vincent Valerie gave some great tips, but I still feel some kind of disconnect. What can I do tell God about it? Just pray about it.
Yes, and so that brings up one more point, forgiveness. Because it's difficult to communicate with someone that you have or you have an issue with. If you're holding in the back of your mind, you got this placeholder, well, yeah, I love them, and I know we together, and we're going to be together. We can't get divorced. It's cheaper to keep her, all these other things. So we're going to stay here together, but I don't like the way she's such and such and such. And because she moved that way, I don't know if I really trust her. Boop, wait a minute. Trust? Why trust?
Wow.
That breaks down communication. You don't trust them because they did something that you haven't forgiven them for, or they lost your trust in that, and you haven't talked about that thing. Before you go to God, or when you go to God, if you're having an issue with forgiveness, you got to deal with that first. You have to deal with that first, because if that is still lingering in your heart, it is going to be a barrier to your communication. So forgiveness. So when you acknowledge each other, when you share first, when you open your heart, when you ask meaningful questions, and then number 5, when you evaluate yourself, include forgiveness in that. Ask for forgiveness. If you know that you have wounded your spouse or that you've been distant, acknowledge that. Please forgive me. I never really learned how to communicate well. I got to 36 years old, or however old you are, without anybody ever really pushing it. And so I resist that, but I acknowledge this is something that you need. It's true. I avoid hard issues because I don't want to have to deal with conflict. I don't like conflict. But we don't have to have conflict.
We don't have to have
Let's have
conflict.
a conversation.
That was not part of the bundle.
Right.
When we got married, that it came with all of that. We don't have to have.
Yeah. And so then wives also, when you have an issue, don't be so quick to be... Because that's what they hear when we start going off. And there are scriptures in the Bible that talk about how men would rather sit on the rooftop of the house than be in the house with a contentious woman.
How much work you got to do to get on top of your roof?
I mean, listen, if you rather sit on the mud thatch hatch roof, because when these scriptures were written, that's what your roof was made of. If you rather do that, no one wants to be hounded or nagged. But also, men, understand that there's a difference between confronting a situation to communicate about it and to solve it and nagging. So don't accuse your wife of nagging you because she comes to you, or has to come to you more than once about something that she's requested of you.
That is so good. That is so good. That is key, because we that's our defense mechanism. It's like, wow, why is she nagging? No, I think she's asking you a question that you didn't answer.
I told you I was going to handle it. Well, babe, you realize that was November of last year, right?
Wow. So, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
This was a much needed conversation, I believe. And I just hope that you take something from this. Like I said, again, if you did, please share. Please like, subscribe if you see it on the YouTube channel. Please tap that like and that heart button. And if you're on the radio show, visit us at couplespursuit.com/communication. And we have a special free masterclass for you.
Yes.
It will help you on the steps to developing that communication.
Effective
breakdown from avoid that communication breakdown, developing effective communication, like my wife said, and helping you get back to the pursuit and maintaining a successful marriage.
Yes, Amen. Because we got married so that we could love on one another and enjoy one another. I mean, there is no dowries and no trading of cattle and goats and cows and all that good stuff. But because our parents said to do so, it wasn't arranged. Most of us do not have an arranged marriage.
That's right.
It's because we want that. So why not get the best out of it? In order to get the best, you got to give your best. So I hope these tools have helped you today. And until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you, make his face shine upon you, be gracious to you, and give you peace as you pursue your spouse. Amen. We'll see you next time on Couples Pursuit Live. Bye.